trees and mushroom clouds, all sitting down for hours trying to get the flower to unlock fireball power and defeat evil Bowser. Rescue the princess from that tower.
The Punisher. The guilty will be punished. Lately there's been a revival of all of the classic DC comic and Marvel characters, starting with the Arrow in 2012, so it was only a matter of time before we got the Punisher, which has just started airing on Netflix. I was stoked when I found out they were making the Punisher series. He's never had a full series to himself. He's had several movies, a couple of spin-off animes, and he's appeared in Spider-Man cartoons on and off over the years, but he's never had his own full production like this, and getting John Bernthal to play him was a stroke of genius. When I saw him first appear in Season 2 of Daredevil, I just couldn't believe it. It was perfect. The Punisher is back. And there's never been a better time to do a retrospective on all the Punisher games that exist out there. And Australia has actually got a big connection to the Punisher, which I'll get into next. Frank Castle, also known as the Punisher, was created by Jerry Conway, John Romita Sr. and Ross Andru. He first appeared in The Amazing Spider-Man issue 129 in the year 1974. After proving popular among readers, he gained a limited series run in 1986, and in the following year debuted in his first ongoing comic book series. The comics told the story of Frank Castle, an ex-Marine whose family was tragically murdered in a botched mob hit. Frank becomes obsessed with revenge and begins living like a vigilante and killing, torturing, and destroying those he believes are guilty. It wasn't long before he had attracted enough attention for a live-action adaptation of his story, and in 1989 Dolph Lundgren took on the role in the Punisher movie. It was filmed on location in Sydney, Australia. Pretty cool. And it's not a bad movie either. I like it. Especially this guy. Check him out. He's so funny.
Very difficult. Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you.
Red 2, what have you got?
Bad kidneys. I gotta pee.
So pee. Everything's okay?
Yeah. It's dead here.
Jesus Christ. Fucking faggot Frenchman. You're 15 minutes late, you stupid dickhead. What's the big idea?
Oh my god, it really was a different world back then, wasn't it? Moving on. It was around this time that Melbourne-based video game developer Beam Software picked up the rights to adapt the character into a series of video games, namely for the NES and Game Boy. They were designed by Greg Barnett and Paul Kidd, who would go on to work on Nightshade for the NES, Shadowrun on the SNES, and Aussie Rules Footy, Super International Cricket, amongst many other games. So we'll talk about Beam another time, but for now, let's move on. Switching the game on, you'll notice LJN at the very top there. Now don't worry about that, alright? Just look down a little bit. This is all you got to worry about right here. Yeah, designed and developed by Beam Software. Yes, not LJN. Stress less. LJN just published it. Damn you. The Punisher for the NES is an arcade-style into-the-screen shooter, a lot like Cabal and Wild Guns. At the very start of the game, you're presented with a wall covered in wanted posters, and you get to choose whichever one you want to do first. So that's pretty cool. A lot like Mega Man, it's got a stage select. But unlike Mega Man, you get to shoot the shit out of the wall with unlimited ammunition. It just gives you a little bit of a hint at some of the destructible environments that'll be in the game. The story's pretty basic. You just gotta make your way through all the hardcore criminals from the New York underworld. Eventually, you'll get to the Kingpin and you have to kick his ass or shoot his face. Now, it varies slightly from those other into-the-screen shooting games because the screen auto-scrolls to the right. It gives a chance for the background scenery to change a bit, and it gives you a slight sense of progression, which I like. You can control Frank by moving him left to right with the D-pad across the screen. And that also moves his crosshair as well, and it'll move slightly faster than he does so that you can catch up to your targets. You can hold down the B button to shoot, but once you do this, Frank freezes in place, so you'll only be able to move the crosshair at this point. Use this to close in on targets that are getting away once you're free of enemy fire. So the whole game then becomes a balance between dodging and shooting, so you have to make sure that you get used to the flow. And there is a flow. It takes a little while to pick up, but once you get it, you're just shooting the shit out of everything and nothing can touch you. It's a pretty good little system and it works surprisingly well. There's a few spots on the screen that you can just sit on that will maximise the effectiveness of this system. Like I mentioned earlier, a lot of the backgrounds are destructible, and when you shoot them, you get little power-ups popping out. This can happen from anything from a broken window, to a trash can, to a bloody fire hydrant. Firing at these icons will allow you to pick them up and utilise them, transforming your gun into an assault rifle, giving you extra shells, first aid kits, Kevlar vest that'll extend your health, grenades, a rocket launcher that's extremely effective against bosses, and of course, the all-powerful extra life. Finding and utilising these power-ups in the right order is essential. You need pretty much everything that you can find in this game. Because running out of bullets in the Punisher is the equivalent of running out of air while swimming. You're fucked, you're left with a single shot pistol, and the enemy waves are pretty relentless. You're gonna be fucked, especially if it happens on the bosses. Oh, don't let that happen. Sometimes after you fulfill certain conditions, or shoot a certain part of scenery like these manhole covers, or the subway sign here, you'll get a big arrow glowing with the word go, and you'll be able to shoot that and head into a bonus round. These rounds are very useful and you really need to figure out where they are and find them, because you're gonna need them. After a big day on the killing streets, the Punisher sometimes just wants to chill back and read the paper. So if you grab those, you'll be able to find out some hints and tips on how to play the game. It's an interesting little addition. The levels are divided into 3 sections, the first 2 being shoot 'em up sections, and the third being the boss section. Upon completion of the shoot 'em up sections, you'll be awarded with all these bonuses regarding your accuracy and how many enemies you've killed. It's really important to be accurate in this game, as you'll be able to achieve bonus health, bonus ammo and bonus grenades right when you need it the most. So yeah, the game punishes inaccuracy.
No, you didn't!
Some of these signs are funny, like I used to think that said Coke, but now I'm not so sure. Oh, and there's a big Beam software panel. Oh, I don't want to shoot that, I like Beam. There are a fair few enemy types to gun down. These enemies rush out at you in waves, they pop up from behind the scenery, and some of them even have their own unique death animations, like if you shoot one while he's running across the screen, he'll fall over and slide, and if you shoot one that's hanging from the ceiling, they'll drop on their head. There's also this strange guy that shows up every now and then and plays the saxophone. It's like one of the only music tracks in the whole game. Why is he there? And anyway, how come these bad guys always know we're coming? The collision detection in the game is spot on. It's perfect. Not once have I felt like I've missed unfairly, or that I've been hit by any stray bullets unfairly. It's all tight. When you get up to the 3rd area in each stage, you'll be approached by a boss character. This is where the gameplay will switch to a first-person combat simulator. It's very difficult. The enemies will rush at you, and you've got to move left and right with the Punisher and use the A button to punch and the B button to kick. In all honesty, I've heard all over the internet that these boss battles are unfair and impossible to beat, but I've got to say, I've had no trouble. Everything's very specifically timed, and it is very difficult and particular about where you stand and when you press the button. But if you do it right, you can usually get through the battles pretty good. You might lose some health here and there, but, you know, it's a boss. These are the big bad guys that the Punisher's had to deal with over his career as a vigilante. It's pretty cool to finally get to fight them and to see them represented in an 8-bit style. The visuals do a great job of representing the game's locations. They're gritty, detailed, dark, and have a comic book style that perfectly suits the Punisher. Sometimes they might seem a little bit rough, but that just adds to the atmosphere and the gritty nature of the comics. I think it's perfectly represented. I love it. I also like the third-person shooter perspective because it makes it feel like you're up close and personal and really immersed in the game world, especially in the battles with the bosses when they rush up to you. It gives the game a character and an atmosphere that's not present in many other NES titles. The music's a strange one because it's almost non-existent and there's only a couple of small tunes in the game that aren't really that great, let's be honest. But it might have been a design choice because the atmosphere is actually enhanced just by using the sound effects. Just you, the Punisher, hundreds and hundreds of rounds, and the silence of the streets. It's a pretty personal experience for a NES game. Oh, not you again.
Guilty. You're dead.
Personally, I love this game because it's an Australian-made classic. The Punisher is a big franchise, and for them to actually have the guts to attempt something different from the bog standard usual movie tie-in licensed NES games that you saw at the time, and it shows the original thinking that was going on in that awesome development team. Intense atmosphere, tight game mechanics and collision detection, and great attention to the source material. I think it's one of the best licensed games for the Nintendo. That's an 8 out of 10 from me.
Bloody ripper. Bloody unreal.
So I got up to Kingpin. He's the last boss, and my god, he beats the shit out of ya. Oh fuck, it's just like in the bloody series. Daredevil and shit. The guy's a fucking psycho. Beat the shit out of me. So on to the next one for part 2. We'll be doing the Game Boy port of the Punisher, which is actually not really a port. It's a completely original game, so why do people keep calling it a port? Anyway, I'll fix that up in the next video. See ya!